It's goodbye to Shaun Abrahams as the National Director of Public Prosecutions. A ConCourt judgment delivered today pushed him out of his job. Abrahams' appointment was deemed unconstitutional. The court ruled former President Jacob Zuma unlawfully removed his predecessor, Nxasana. So does South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority still have credibility, and is its independence at stake? To talk us through it is the DA's Werner Horn, the EFF's Dali, Mpofu, and constitutional law expert Swart. We extended an invite to the ANC, who did not have anyone available for the interview. It's very good to have you with us. And obviously, if you want to call in and ask any questions of our guests, please go ahead. What is your response to the ruling and Shaun Abrahams' exit?
Well, we welcome the ruling, obviously. But, we look beyond the specifics of this particular issue, in answering your question, to say that what really has happened under ANC rule over time is what one might describe as institutional decay. And the NPA story saga, from more than 10 years ago up to now, will tell you that it's been, a long time coming. From the era of the Mbeki era, you had the saga with Bulelani Ngcuka, the spy tapes, and so on. And then you had the Vusi Pikoli saga. And now under Zuma, you've had this Nxasana and Shaun Abrahams saga. So you really almost have, and of course the Jiba issue that just came out of the courts as well now. So you basically almost don't have an institution there to even salvage. It's going to take a lot of doing
yeah, it seems there's obviously a lot of rotten there.
Yes, because institutions, as you know, democracy is really defined by institutions. People, leaders come and go, governments come and go. But if you destroy the actual institutions, then there's nothing to inherit even for another government coming in. So even as opposition, we don't want to see institutions being destroyed, because
no, I'm sure.
Otherwise, what are we going to take over?
What did you make of the ruling and the way it played out?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I'm very pleased by it.
Yeah.
But I think it was also unconventional. From a legal point of view, one would have expected Nxasana to be reinstated. If he was unlawfully removed, perhaps the expectation is that he would then be reinstated. But the court seemed to act in the national interest by using it.
Because there was a lot of doubt over him when he left.
Right,
yeah.
By using their very wide discretion and saying, it wouldn't be in the national interest to reinstate him, we should look for someone new, which is very interesting. And I think it's very good that they gave him a strong slap on the wrist by saying, you don't have to accept a golden handshake,
Yeah.
If you are paid off in this way. It
raises questions,
yes,
doesn't it?
It also puts a question mark over your integrity. So I think that the court has made some very good statements in that judgment, even though the minority judgment, I think, is also interesting to look at. But, any which way, it's very positive. The question is what happens now, of course. Yeah.
And your response? Was it the right thing to do?
It was definitely the right thing to do. It will go some way to enable the president to now clean up at the NPA and restore public confidence and the credibility, the impartiality and the independence of this institution. But therein lies the difficulty going forward.
Why is that? Because is it easy just tackling one person, but probably a lot harder tackling the others in there who need to go?
Well, I think, as Dali indicated, the NPA has long been plagued by troubles at the top. So the challenge is now to appoint somebody who's willing and able to perform that duty as the Act prescribes, without fear, favour or prejudice. And then the further challenge, and therein also lies the question, is whether the ANC will be hands-off going forward, because we are where we are, because the ANC eroded this institution through intimidation and attempts at political manipulation.
Are we here because of Jacob Zuma?
Yeah, we are here because of Jacob Zuma, but as I say, we're really here because of the ANC as such, because the attempts, as Werner just said, to manipulate such an institution has been driven by the conflicts of interest, such as the ones that Jacob Zuma had, as the court explicitly said that he was...
Because you can see why he'd want Abrahams
there. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you are a president who is facing prosecution, anyone would be a fool to want to put somebody there who's going to prosecute you or who's likely to prosecute you. So the problem is structural. It is in the mere fact that you had a president who's in that position in the first place. And so the court, I think, pronounced it very well. The High Court, which was confirmed by the Constitutional Court, was even harder because it explained in more graphic detail why Jacob Zuma acted in this way and why he had to buy out Nxasana, as it were, and obviously appoint someone who was sheepishly going to let him off the hook.
Because it didn't actually say anything about how competent Abrahams was or is, did it? I mean, that sort of leaves that open. I mean, do you think this was just a good way of getting rid of somebody who was not good in the job either?
Well, I wouldn't think that the Constitutional Court would have that kind of motive. I mean, really, they're above that sort of reproach. But, I mean, it's not a bad thing that he leaves. We know that he hasn't performed well. And I must just add that, you know, the rot in the NPA precedes Zuma. We know that it wasn't Zuma who got rid of...
Or was it exacerbated under him? Yeah, exactly.
You know? So we've never really had since, well, you know, the 2002, we haven't had, or before that, I'm not even sure Nguka was, you know, really above reproach. So I think that we've never had a truly independent director, and the question has to be asked whether it's worth keeping that institution or that position, you know, if the ANC is unable to fill this in a constitutionally lawful way. It's a very, very deep and serious failure.
You want Parliament to get involved in choosing the next man-woman?
An interesting comment to say that if the ANC is unable to fill this with somebody with the necessary integrity. The fact is the Simelane judgment quite clearly said this is not an ordinary discretion on the part of the president. It's not an ordinary executive function. It is something that has to be done on objective grounds. So we say, if whilst the NPA Act and the Constitution is silent on the involvement of Parliament and or the public, quite possibly the time has now come for the President to say, but in order for me to make a rational decision in this, I want to consult the legislature and the people of South Africa. That may ultimately lead to the best decision in this regard in our view.
Okay. And is it more than structural changes now?
Well, sorry, again, just flowing from that, you know, it really shouldn't be that hard. I mean, basically, you need someone who doesn't have a criminal record or, you know, any sort of dark cloud.
It can't be that hard, surely.
I mean, there are a few suitable candidates out there, right? So it shouldn't be necessary to, so this is an indictment of the ANC, right? I mean, it shouldn't be necessary to consult the NA for this, because the view is now that it should be, the NDPP should be appointed along the lines of the public protector, for example, or judges, that you need that kind of public input. But really, one would expect more of the president. And we need a president who isn't scared of any form of prosecution, or a president who's serious, right, about the prosecuting corruption. And we saw Ramaphosa in the State of the Nation address, you know, really seem to present this as a foundational issue for his presidency, that he would prosecute corruption. And we haven't seen this yet. And another important question is, you know, what will happen to the ongoing prosecutions? I mean, this is a position where where it's crucial to have continuity.
Right, and this must be dealt well in order to send out a good message. Who is that person out there? Do you have any idea who would be, as you said, brave enough to take on the job?
No, I'm sure there are many suitable candidates. I think Mia is quite right. It's not actually that difficult. It's not so much the qualifications.
But will they be allowed to do the job? I guess
that's the point. There are many qualified people, many, I mean, countless. The question here is that this raises many other questions, for example, such as the powers of the president. Should we have this all-powerful president, whoever it is, all-powerful president who can do something like this and appoint somebody to shield themselves, as it were. And those are the kinds of questions we should ask. And the institutional mechanisms, whether it's parliament, all the checks and balances that are needed to imbue that office with the necessary independence. And that independence can only be achieved if there isn't the possibility of leaning over politically or somebody being able to resist political pressure, because politicians will always put pressure, make no mistake. The question is, you must have the institutional mechanisms for someone to be able to fend off that pressure and for honest people to just do their job. But if the thing is mired in in structural situations where the person who appoints you actually, or who can remove, who has the power to remove you, is the very person from whom you are supposed to be independent. That's just
I suppose the question is, can you take the politics out of this?
Well, ultimately, as Dali said, maybe there will always be political attempts to influence the NPA. So what we must be looking for is somebody who is willing and able to resist this. What I want to add, however, is to say that yes, while we know the let's say the requirements to fill this position is fairly simple, I think this time around what must be added is that we must at least appoint somebody who can, from the leadership position, oversee the prosecutions related to state capture going forward. That is of crucial importance. For now, that has to be factored in by President Ramaphosa. It's not good enough to say it's simply somebody who's found to be fit and proper to be an advocate, who has the necessary experience. For now, we need also leadership and relevant experience in tackling complex commercial prosecutions.
How important are the changes that were asked to be amended? Section 12, subsection 4, section 12, subsection 6. What's the significance in those?
Well, it's unfortunate that sections of the NPA Act was found to be unconstitutional. One would just expect that this should be remedied as soon as possible. But I don't think that is as significant as the person who replaces Shaun Abrahams now. I think that really that is crucial, and it needs to be someone who can inspire public trust.
Or, I mean, as you said a little earlier, does it need to be disbanded? I mean, might that be the cleanest way going forward? And is that even a possibility?
Well, we have a lot of crime to be prosecuted, so someone has to do this, right? And I think that the public might not be, fully aware of just how much the NPA encompasses, you know. It encompasses, it used to encompass this, the Scorpions. It encompasses priority crimes litigation unit, serious economic crimes, a whole array of pressing national issues. So really, I think it's been a circus so far, to be honest, and it should be an embarrassment to the ANC. So I don't understand why they've been so hesitant at cleaning this up.
Yeah, I wonder what sort of impact it has had, obviously from its reputation's in tatters, but how has it prevented it from working and doing the job that it should have done? As you say, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, look, it does. I mean, just take the politics out of it for a minute and just imagine how many people. The public confidence in an institution like that. How many people are sitting right now in jail and thinking, oh, well, maybe if Shaun Abrahams wasn't there, I might have, the decision to prosecute me might not have been taken, and so on. It's actually very, very serious. The implications are far-reaching. You can't even imagine, because this is not about the big cases and so on. It's about the daily works in the magistrates' courts, in the ordinary courts, and so on, and the important decisions that affect people's lives that get taken by somebody holding that position. So if you have someone who doesn't have integrity in one sphere, then they might not have integrity in another sphere as well. And therefore, it's something that is never calculated to instill public confidence in the system as a whole, as such.
I mean, that's a really good point, isn't it? When the public feel that there's nobody really looking after them, you can't trust the police because they are often behind scams or events or happenings or, cash and transit heists. I mean, that's the devastating effect, isn't it?
Well, the public confidence is definitely a big issue. Apart from offenders sitting in jail who now second-guess the NPA, as a member of parliament, I've been called also by victims who now question a decision on the part of ordinary prosecutors not to prosecute.
Yeah.
So where in the past, hopefully there would have been that trust and confidence that ultimately the NPA would make the right decision, even petty crimes and so the ordinary Joe Soap is now asking whether the NPA is taking the right prosecutorial decisions. And ultimately that has been the effect, the ripple effect of what has been going on at the top. You know, we must pay tribute to the ordinary prosecutors out there grinding out prosecutions day after day, still performing their jobs.
And you wonder how much pressure is on
under
them.
huge pressure, and none of it their fault, really.
So the foundations have really been shaken, haven't they? I mean, what sort of impact do you think it has had on South Africa's reputation, obviously, you know, on the continent and abroad?
Well, as an international lawyer, I can just cite the Al-Bashir case, right, which was another failure of the NPA, which actually embarrassed us, you know, worldwide. And one would want to see that then the next, you know, incumbent would take international crimes more seriously and would, you know, uphold our international obligations. So certainly, one case such as that, you know, can cause tremendous damage. And I think the result was also just this perception of arbitrariness, that the rule of law is withering away, and also that it's a bit of a free-for-all in a sense. But I think it's important to understand that criminal justice is always selective, right? But one wants to see at least, you know, some consistency and some continuity within the NPA, and one wants to see someone with real integrity holding that position. And I think, to me, that is the most important thing that the court emphasized over and over again, the idea of honesty and integrity, because without that, you can't be independent.
All right, very good to talk to you, Werner Horn, Dali, Mpofu, and Swart. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Now, the Turkish lira tanks and brings the rand down with it. Will it go any lower? Up next, we're live in New York to talk to an expert on Wall Street. This is Tonight with Jane Dutton.